Hello, mic check. Looks like everything is working. Sounds good. Good morning. This is the Collapse Experiment, and I believe this episode is called Lockdown 2 Shanghai, the unwanted sequel to the lockdowns that we've already been experiencing for the last 2 years. Yeah, so I have several news stories, a couple of them relating to Shanghai, which I will start with. One fun one that I had to throw in just because big fan of the X-Files from the 90s. Can't believe it was that long ago. But yeah, so the first article I have here, these can all be found at thecollapseexperiment.com. This is from Zero Hedge. Shanghai residents rebel and cases surge. As cases surge, lockdown extended indefinitely. While it looks like our lockdowns are coming to an end here in the United States, I have a feeling the closer we get to the election, the more likely war is with Russia. Yeah, we're going to start seeing this again. And if you're listening to the World Economic Forum, they want to do this for climate change. Yeah, you know how like if you grow up Catholic, Sunday is supposed to be your like you don't do anything day, and if you're Jewish, the Sabbath, you don't do anything on that day. The World Economic Forum wants to force the entire world to not do stuff for a period of time to make the planet heal. But back to Shanghai. Shanghai has 26 million residents, and what was initially introduced as a 9-day staggered lockdown has been extended indefinitely as the number of newly confirmed cases soared to a new record on Tuesday. Authorities counted more than 13,000 new cases in Shanghai alone and more than half of the 20,000 new cases across the entire country. But then we get down to Selena Wang on Twitter. Chinese social media shows some breaking out of lockdown to protest, chanting, "We want freedom. Why are you starving us?" Yeah, we saw this before in Wuhan. They were welding people into their apartments. Nobody had the chance to get any food. When they did open up for a short period of time, everybody flocked to the markets, which hadn't been restocked, and nobody had any food. China's really good at planning this stuff out. Much of the dissent is censored, and most of the videos in our story were erased from the internet. Yeah, that's from, looks like it's from CNN. So, things are bad when China's even censoring CNN. The one news organization is like, China's awesome. And then, let's see here. Skip that one for now. President Xi faces an impossible dilemma in Shanghai as COVID outbreak worsens despite lockdown. Yeah, so the Chinese Communist Party have gone from denying plans of a citywide lockdown of Shanghai to denouncing what was supposed to be a two-part staggered lockdown to simply locking down the entire city and sending in the military and contingent of medical workers as locals accused the government of violating its social compact to put the people's interest first. Yeah, no kidding. There's another question about these lockdowns. If the lockdowns themselves are creating the variants that we're seeing. This goes back to Weinstein, the Dark Horse podcast, where they were talking about this theory. You introduce a lockdown, and as the lockdown goes into play, there's one variant that's out there. But then you have groups of people huddled in these buildings. They only come in contact with other people in the building. Therefore, it's a unique environment for that virus to mutate, but it's going to mutate in that building. So by the time you end the lockdown, you've got, if there's 10 big buildings in your area that's locked down, you could possibly end up with 10 different variants of a virus because each environment's going to be completely different. Whereas if you just let the virus run rampant in its natural environment, it's not going to be forced to mutate in order to survive. It's got the environment that it desires, and therefore it's basically running out of the petri dish that it's growing in. And instead, we're creating the actual mutations that we're seeing due to these policies. Um, yeah, so looks like Xi is having some difficulties with all of these lockdowns, as he should. And I just have a feeling that we're going to start seeing this crap here again, because as the Democrats look forward to possibly losing power, they're going to be grasping onto any type of power that they can get their hands on. And we've already been seeing weird acts of desperation, like here in Michigan, the governor all of a sudden like lifted all restrictions, and she's like, "Oh no, everything's fine. We can go back to normal." And when in reality, everyone's like, "Yeah, your approval rating is in the gutter, and you want to get reelected." That's really what it comes down to. Okay. Ukraine receives tanks from Czech Republic after reports of U.S. quietly assisting. Um, that might be a reference to Joe Biden doing his creepy whisper stuff, but I doubt it. On Tuesday, it was confirmed that Ukraine has received over a dozen Soviet-designed T-72M tanks from the Czech Republic amid a big push among Western powers to bolster Ukraine defenses amid the continuing Russian war, as the Russians are beginning to cut off much of the east and south. I believe I'm just going to compare this to the whole Poland thing, where they were trying to get MiG jets out of Poland, hand them over to Ukraine, and it looks like whereas Poland was very out in the open about what was happening, now we're seeing that the Czech Republic apparently has no problem keeping their mouths shut until after the fact. So, yeah, we've been arming Ukraine. It's just now we're giving them better stuff to fight Russia. And let's see here. Moving on. What's behind the renewed drone attacks on the United Arab Emirates? Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the Middle East that because we're no longer there, we don't hear about. But between the war in Yemen with Saudi Arabia and all these other conflicts going on, it's people keep forgetting that there's still a whole lot of stuff going on in the Middle East that could also affect oil prices even more than what's going on in Ukraine. The United Arab Emirates has been exposed to a recent wave of drone and missile strikes from the Houthi militants in Yemen. These attacks are in retaliation to the change in the UAE's strategy and its intervention in Yemen's civil war. And I'm just surprised that the rebels in Yemen are able to get their hands on the drones. And I'm kind of curious as to who is giving that stuff over to them. I just wouldn't be surprised if it was someplace like, I don't know, Iran. And I'm not seeing, let's see here. Yeah, it goes into detail about like all the different weapons deals, 3.5 billion deal with South Korea. Basically all the crap that's going into Yemen in order to prop up this other war. What's going on in Yemen, you could almost compare it to what's going on in Ukraine. It's just not as big of a deal. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff going on in the Middle East that we just aren't hearing about. Uh, NATO scours the skies for incursions amid rising Russia tensions. This I did not hear about until I found this article, and it turns out an unidentified Russian aircraft flying off the northern coast of Norway raised up an alarm among NATO officials this week, prompting a Norwegian fighter jet to lift off into the sky and investigate. So they think that the Russians right now are trying to collect intel and information on certain targets in different countries that if NATO gets involved, they'll immediately retaliate against. We also saw this with Sweden, and again, I highly doubt that the Russian fighter jets that flew over Sweden's airspace actually had nuclear weapons. Um, After all, it took them a month to figure out that they had nuclear weapons on these jets, which I don't know why it would take that long for them to figure that out. They initially said that they knew that they had cameras and other navigation devices for plotting out like GPS coordinates, targets, things that they might want to hit later. They somehow knew that the Jets had that like right away, but then a month later they're like, they were armed with nukes, and I'm just not buying that. There's a lot that I'm not buying from the media and a lot of these government officials when it comes to what's happening in Ukraine. So yeah, it looks like NATO is just on the lookout for more jets going into their airspace, collecting information. They're pretty sure that it's just Russia trying to collect information on like airstrips and other targets that they can hit if NATO gets involved in the war. So numerous health problems, more likely due to that C19 jabby jab jab that more likely due to that thing than coincidence. VAERS data analysis. So this is something that from the beginning, a lot of reputable medical practitioners, doctors have been talking about when it comes to VAERS. And let's see here, various health problems more likely after receiving that thing are more likely caused by the thing than being merely coincidental, according to analysis of data from the VAERS reporting system. VAERS has been flooded with more than 1 million reports of various health problems and more than 21,000 deaths reported since the introduction of the thing in late 2020. Some experts and public officials have downplayed the significance of the reports, noting that just because a health problem occurs after getting it doesn't mean it was caused by it. Yeah, but when somebody's hit by a bus and they're tested positive for a certain virus, it's still listed as the death was caused by that virus. So they can take that comment and like shove it right up there because the way that they've been recording the deaths and the way that they've been neglecting the reports of the side effects of the thing that's supposed to prevent that death are completely opposite policies. And if there's one thing that pisses me off, it's somebody lying to my face while saying they're not lying to my face. So a lot of these people that are debating the VAERS output, because there's 21,000 deaths that are reported, but I know for a fact that there's probably 10 times more doctors who were trying to report side effects and things that they were coming across from their patients. And then they just gave up because the VAERS website kept going down. The process was cumbersome. It was time consuming while they could be helping other people. It's a very complicated system, one that doesn't work very well. And then they just end up giving up. So the fact that we have 21,000 deaths reported is this. We know that that's a fraction of what's actually out there. And as for all the other health side effects, we also know that from the Pfizer documents, those are available at thecollapseexperiment.com if you want to check those out. We also know that there was a 9-page printout of all the side effects that Pfizer was looking for when it comes to their jab, and they never handed it out to the public. It was only released after a court order that the possible side effects that they were looking for was released. And when it was shown to the doctors were like, yeah, we didn't know to look for this. Well, why not? We were never given this. But this is the stuff you're supposed to be looking for. Well, how would we have known that? So yeah, theirs is inaccurate. It's purposely inaccurate for several reasons. The website sucks. It's too time consuming for people who are dealing with a pandemic. Pfizer didn't release the possible side effects that people are supposed to report on. So yeah, good stuff. At least now we're starting to get actual information here. And while this was posted from Zero Hedge, the initial report was done by the Epoch Times. So again, Epoch Times is pretty much ahead of the curve. And it's actually one newspaper, if I subscribe to, it'd probably be them. Let's see here. I've got a couple more articles here. Oh, here's the fun one, and probably the last news article for the day. Pentagon releases 1,500 pages of secret documents about shadowy UFO program after 4-year battle. The X-Files are real. So, included in the report are unaccountable pregnancies, because that wasn't like a whole season of the X-Files by itself. And what was it? Radiation burns from possible encounters with UFOs and let's see here, ALF, alien life forms. Much, yeah. So I'm gonna actually look for those and post those on the website if I can get a download of that, so that it can be viewed by you, the viewers. And it looks like we've got some comments here. Let's see here. You're up early, been listening while getting ready for work. Martin over a pipe. Remember, you aren't supposed to trust VAERS, though the CDC had to revise their fatality numbers down. Yep. Yeah. Yep. That was something pretty interesting. That, and specifically, they also had to redo the numbers for child fatalities, where there was a glitch in the system, and it was like 15-20% of child fatalities were not recorded properly and had to be taken off as official COVID deaths. And children already have a super low fatality rate when it comes to the virus to begin with, and now you've got the new mayor of New York, who appears to be just a complete douche. He's now requiring 2 to 4-year-olds to wear a mask while out in public. I don't know if that means they're going to start arresting 2 to 4-year-olds, but yeah, it's not even interesting at this point. It's just sad and pathetic, and I don't know what it is about New York, but they can't seem to hire anybody to run that city that's not a douchebag. Granted, the people I've met from New York tend to be douchebags, but I don't know. It seems to be like this running theme with that city where it's just incompetence after incompetence with running things over there. Um, there's also the woman that confronted the mayor, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, about the whole mask mandate thing, saying, hey, you're the one who said that you're going to lift the mandate. Then you decide at the last minute that children now have to wear the mask and you're not lifting it. And what do you have to say? And then she ends up losing her job like right afterwards. Granted, she worked for a law firm. They're claiming she said that she was a reporter, but has a tax-paying member of the public who's now being forced to do something that she was told was no longer going to be mandatory. Does she not have the right to question the people in power who are now forcing this upon her? It's just another case of do not question authority, keep your mouth shut. Oh, you're going to lose your job. And yeah, this will teach other people not to do that. And I think we just need to have more people being upfront and in their face with this bullshit. It's it's sad, and this whole thing just needs to end. But I think we're just going to end up seeing more of this crap in the future. Disney FDA not report vaccine numbers for ages 19 through 50 because I thought it would reduce the amount of people that would take to Disney and FDA. I don't know why Disney's FDA not report vaccine numbers for ages. Yeah, no kidding. I remember them saying that. Is the CDC saying that COVID pandemic is over by revoking or letting Title 42 expire? I'm going to say that expired before the date that it expired because Biden's definitely not going by Title 42, um, which limited the number of immigrants coming into the country. And as we know, as long as you come over the border illegally, if you're a child, he'll traffic you to other states and dump you and let the states handle you after that. Um, there really hasn't been a push for sending anybody back to their home countries since Biden took office. Um, the argument for any of these people to claim asylum is moot since almost none of these people are from Mexico. They're traveling through several other countries that they could try to seek asylum in while trying to get to the US. The whole goal is to get to the US, and that's not seeking asylum. Talk to Tech sucks, not Disney. Yeah. Well, only goes to show that Disney is pushing for their name on this platform. Gee, I wonder why they would be doing that. Why would Disney want their name to come up at random times to think about them and enjoy that image of weird transgender princesses playing with your kids at Disney World? I don't know. Yeah, so Title 42, they weren't enforcing it to begin with. Of course, they're going to let it expire. Now, if it was a gun bill, if it was like the automatic weapons ban or something like that, where I'm trying to remember the one that, let's see here, Clinton signed in after Columbine. And it was for 10 years, and then Bush let it expire. And it's because of the ATF that would have been enforced up until the very end. But as for Title 42, they just ignored that, and it's funny they can pick and choose as to what they want to enforce and what they want to ignore. But When it comes to something like that, oh, just ignore it. It doesn't exist. That's a law that doesn't matter. We just like the ones that protect our tax base when it comes down to it. Oh, so that is about it. If anybody else doesn't have any questions, I'm gonna cut this feed and go about the rest of my day. It's crappy out, downpouring, raining. Not really gonna get much done today, unfortunately, and keep on typing.